What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we're providing you some entries and exits for stocks that I'm looking at for the week. If that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as I do also provide a weekly analysis about current events, upcoming events, earnings. So check out that video there as well. Also, you can check me out on X at Hemi137, where I go over daily pulse of the market and what I am seeing in the market on any given day. So, with all that being said, before we get started, remember to hit the like and let's go ahead and roll right into some technical analysis. Now, this week, as you can see, starting to get some really heavy rejection around the 6,100 mark, and rightfully so. I mean, Trump has only been in office for like 2 weeks now. There's a lot of tariff talk, and he's still doing a lot of executive actions. So you're starting to get some of these wild swings, and I expect this to occur even more as we continue on. This was essentially the DeepSeek scare we had last weekend. We dropped, and then again, we retested, and now again we rejected hardcore. So we'll have to see. We do have some big earnings still this week. We have Amazon. We do have AMD. We have Google. We have a couple of big ones still this week that are going on. And then after this week, we're kind of just waiting for NVIDIA, which is about 3 weeks away. Once we have that, then the market will make its decision and go from that point. So from this point, earnings have been okay, but we are still showing a lot of weakness, and a lot of these major corporations are still laying off. They're looking for unique ways to lay people off, whether that's having to come into office, or if you buy additional items on essentially your, business card, they are removing you. It doesn't matter if it's something simple. If you're not productive, if you're the bottom 10% of the productive group, then you are essentially being let go at this point. So again, still big problems, and this is why Trump is trying to cut interest rates, but it's again going to be a fight with Powell. So we'll see what happens there. But nonetheless, potentially this week, I could see us potentially holding this 6K mark here, and maybe attempting to try to go back to 6,100. I don't really see us breaking this. I think the momentum, if it was to be there, we would have seen it coming into earnings, but we really haven't seen that. So given what the next current events are, we typically are getting into that cycle end of February, March, where the market dives pretty heavily anyway. So if that's going to be the case, then I can see us just floating around these two levels until that happens, and then potentially breaking this level, and then retesting back down around that 5,800 level, I think could be a strong possibility. So again, this week, I think we're going to hover around here. There's a lot priced in. There's 100 points priced in this week. We have non-farms on Friday again, so understand that. We have a lot of regional banks and stuff that are still reporting. Headline news is going to be extremely important. That's kind of what's been guiding this, because we've been kind of just choppy waiting for these earnings to get through. Which is a bad sign, especially when you're talking about price action. If you're getting a lot of choppiness, that means the market's just waiting for the events to occur. And then typically after that, they'll probably start selling off, especially if you get some positive news in these companies. But again, the cloud space is showing some weakness, which is not a good sign, because we're talking about AI infrastructure, pumping $500 billion over the next 5 years into that. So the fact that it's showing weakness, and again, kind of what DeepSeek kind of planted that bug, that again people are doing it for much cheaper. So again, we'll have to see. So I really anticipate us breaking this level and coming back down, especially because we keep getting rejected roughly around the 6,100 mark. And something we've seen back in before the early stages of 2022. We started to see massive selling during that time, and it was largely because of high inflationary concerns. And so we're kind of starting to see that now. But we'll wait and watch how it's looking. Again, weekly heavy rejection here. You can see this easily on the weekly candle here, so that's definitely not a good sign. We've broken out a couple of these little trends here, a retest, and then got jammed down. So I think we could potentially see that 58. Like I said, you got some really tight levels here. You got the 58 and the 57 roughly. And then the 56, so about every 100 points, you got some pretty strong, I wouldn't say really strong, because you haven't really retested any of this. This level here at the 56 is pretty strong, because you've bounced around this area pretty well. And then this level here is kind of more of a speed bump of that 54. But again, I'm anticipating as we go into spring that we're going to start seeing higher and higher inflation that could potentially lead to stagflation with what's going on with um, with the spending that is currently going on. So you have to understand that coming into the back half of this year, with the Biden administration, they were spending like crazy. Now you're starting to see a lot of cuts and everything from Trump, and I think they've already saved like $45 billion. There is a Doge clock and the debt clock that is showing how much apparently they've been saving, like almost $1 billion or somewhere close, even more than that, almost every day with that Doge clock. So they're saving billions of dollars, removing a lot of these programs, freezing a lot of these things, and seeing what actual function they serve. So again, I think you're going to see a lot of just volatility in general over the next month. And then in March, you could potentially get an event that could sell us off. Again, we've gone nothing but up. That's one thing you do need to keep in mind. You have been essentially in a bull run to this point since 02. Since 02 has been back down here. So that's when essentially we officially paused, I believe. No, we paused here. But this is when inflation started to turn. That's when we kind of started rolling up, and then we paused because we were starting to retest and come back down. And then again, we've gone up ever since. So only about 3 red candles on the monthly, which is wild. But nonetheless, again, because that was all the massive spending, we were spending about $1 trillion every 90 days. So just try to put that in perspective as you move forward here. So with that said, let's move on to Bitcoin. Bitcoin just been hovering around here, much like the market. Is consolidating a lot. So anticipating a big move out of here. A lot of people are anticipating a large move to the upside, potentially to 200K. A lot of people say 150. We'll see. You have to understand, we've already made a 500 and about 60% move from the bottom of about 2 years ago. So the fact that we're going to keep going up, that's the problem. If you keep thinking this thing's going to go up, if you're a long-term investor, that's different. But if you're a short-term long swing trader, the fact you've already been up 580%, I think at this point you should pretty much just have runners and then capture whatever last move is left in this thing. But ultimately, if this does sell off, at least you're not giving up profits. And that's one of the biggest thing, more about taking profits than trying to squeeze out every last drop of a run. So again, you came from 16K all the way up to 111 here is the highest point. Not that you would time that perfectly, but you've probably come close to this. So we are consolidating. We'll watch and we'll see, but I'm anticipating a big pullback. If we do pull back from Bitcoin, you do got strength here around that 90K. We hovered around that not that long ago, just a couple of weeks ago, actually. And then I think if we do break that, you're going to have a massive gap down to the 71. I think we could at least see that pullback if the market pulls back, and then the Bitcoin could gain some strength there, and then potentially go into a larger run and potentially break this 110 here. Again, you're going to only hit up against this glass for so long before either one, it gets rejected even harder and actually breaks this level, and then you have that gap fill, and then again, you get a really solid foundation here at the 72 mark. That could be your last dip before maybe a larger bull run, which I do believe with all the changes that Trump is making, that it will be a strong bull run. But we don't know what events or black swan events could potentially be in the pipeline here. We're aware of some of them, but nonetheless, it's kind of what we're watching here. Again, the fact that every state and the government are having a Bitcoin reserve is concerning in my aspect. That's not why it was created. But ultimately, again, understand that if they manipulated metals for many, many years, and I am heavily weighing toward the fact that I can see them doing the same thing to Bitcoin and to cryptocurrencies, at least to Bitcoin itself. And then you're talking about your L1s, maybe not so much, but not really anticipating these large moves. Again, we'll wait and we'll see, but that's kind of what I'm watching right now. Again, I don't like to project too far ahead. I don't like to get too much into, a thought process that it could potentially play out one way. We'll wait, we'll see. That's kind of my short-term thesis on it, but nonetheless, we'll see what happens there. Then Tesla, it had a double miss, but now Tesla's starting to be seen more as a technology company. Imagine that. So the FSD, we'll get that in June. So anticipate that this last dive we may have in March, maybe the last dive we can get. before FSD starts rolling out, as that subscription will come out. And then again, the steam with what's going on with robotics. I would really love it down to here. Your 200 moving average on the daily is way down here, just under 300. My thing is if we do break this level, this is a big level, this 380. If we do break that, you do have support here at the 350 and then potentially down here at the 300. I think if we do get some massive selling, I think that's about as low as you're going to get it. Potentially is around 325. You have to understand the closer you get to the 200 on the daily, depending when this drops, if this drops, that more likely it's going to be a wick pretty quick out of here. So you're probably not going to have a lot of time. So to be honest, anything below 350 and below that, I think is a great buy. But again, we'll have to wait and see. This is kind of wedging. This might actually hold this 380, and then you might get a big breakout, even if something major happens. But again, we have to wait and see there. And then RX, I really like this company for long-term hold. I am holding this like long-term and playing this range. So essentially the 6 to 8 is a phenomenal range, about a 30% move you're capturing over the past month almost. So I'm capturing this a couple different times, waiting for one last pullback here. You are starting to kind of get a trend line up. So we'll see if this does come down this week. Hoping we can get a wick down in the 6 here. We may only get down to the 667. It did briefly touch this and then shoot back up, but it is dumping. We'll see if this does come back down. Again, the end of February is an event. They're supposed to have one of their, essentially their medicines are supposed to be going to production, I think by the end of the week, the end of the month. So we'll see how that does play out. But if this does sell off heavy, I'm definitely a buyer at roughly around the $6 mark again. And continuing to play this range till it breaks out. But nonetheless, I mean, it's been consolidating very nicely here for a very long time. So I think eventually this thing is going to have a massive rip up. And I think that's going to be in the short term because they do have a lot of scheduled events going on during 2025. So do you want to keep that in mind? Now, Apple, I'm not a huge fan of Apple. Apple AI, you have to understand they have a lot of money. They have a lot of money to try to shift around. Obviously, they have a lot of dead projects they've had to kill off as of right now or put on hold. But nonetheless, if I am potentially looking on getting some kind of position in this, right now, their current holding roughly around the 218. I think if this does break back down, again, their ceiling got rejected pretty hard this past week at the 250. But looking to see if we can break this 220. I think anything below that is probably a pretty solid buy here. Got really solid support here at the 195. I think if the market turns over, this thing could really start selling, especially with tariffs and stuff. I think that could bring new fear into Apple. But again, Apple doesn't sell off very much. It's kind of a good savings account nonetheless, at least in the next couple of years. I don't really see them innovating much. But again, I think it's a solid dividend payer as well. So there's a couple different good aspects to this. So I'm looking to see if we dive down, just grab a bag of this, potentially if it does sell off pretty heavy as well there. AMD, this is, I think, one of the bigger ones that's going to have its NVIDIA-like moment. I think when you start talking about how ChatGPT and DeepSeek are working, that the initiation part, essentially when you've asked a question on how the AI model responds, that is where I think AMD is going to shine, and where a lot of people think it's going to shine. Even Mark Zuckerberg is on board with that, and he is actually investing in AMD. So I think it would be prime. They do have earnings this week. This could be the earnings where, in their actual report, they're doing very, very strongly as well. So they could actually, this could be the breakout that we're looking for AMD. I know a lot of people don't like AMD. They call it Advanced Money Destroyer, but nonetheless, still holding roughly really strong here at the 115 and kind of just slowly chopping down. But I think it'll be well worth it going up forward. Again, I love the CEO of this company. I think she's an underdog in many aspects and very underrated. I think she is actually very, very good. So again, we'll watch and we'll see. I think we can at least recover this, but I'm holding this for a much longer swing. I do believe if over multiple years, I think over the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years, I think AMD is going to have a massive move to the upside, and I want to be part of that. So that's why I'm buying this dip right now. Then you have, I would say Avago, but Avago is still way too high. Wing, we'll go over Wing. Wing looks like it's finally breaking out here, potentially retest the 290. We'll see if this thing can start ripping back up, potentially even recover up to that 380s we're kind of looking at. So pretty decent move there. But the ceiling here roughly is around that 430 mark. So, but we are getting a wedge break. We'll see how well this does play out. Some of these wedges just haven't been playing out, especially to the upside. But we'll see what happens there. But I did want to bring that one up as well. And then ELF, I think, is potentially a good buy here. With the concerns about the tariffs, the CEO is actually expanding during this time just because of how well they've done. But their growth rate year over year is still fantastic. Ideally, if we can get it here at the 90, would be a really great buy. And I do believe it can recover a lot of this up to the 200 moving forward. But again, you might have another bad quarter or two, but ultimately I think ELF will do very, very well. But I do believe they report on Thursday, so do keep that in mind. I don't know if it's going to dip well below here at this 90. It looks like it's trying to. You do have a little bit of support here at the 101. A psychological number. It's been kind of pinging. These are these two really tight zones right here. So we'll see if this actually does break out and comes back down. But anything just below 100, I think, could be a strong buy there as well. Meta is too high. Microsoft's too high. NVIDIA, I think I still like AMD way better than NVIDIA. That's just my opinion. You can do whatever you want. Obviously, it's do your own due diligence, but that's where my bet is that you're going to get a bigger move out of NVIDIA or out of AMD than you will out of NVIDIA. And obviously this one, we've been talking about this one for a while. It is starting to break out. It's trying to recover at least back up to the 220. Looks like it did retest here at the 162 like we said it potentially would. Now let's see if we can gain some traction back up to the 220. So kind of still watching that there. I did not take position on that. It's just a value play I always bring up every week, just because we want to kind of know where value is at, and this one's a good gauge of that. Then obviously JP Morgan, it's the infinite money glitch where this thing just goes up. So again, we'll watch and we'll see. I'm not expecting the Big 10 banks to really get hit, but when you start talking about regional banks, you start getting some fear there because that bank term funding program is out of money. I think this could massively swap this and turn this over and at least cut 50% of this move in half. We don't know what else will come during that time either, but as of right now, again, you're still in price discovery mode in psychological numbers at this point. So the 280 potentially, again, this thing only moves about 4 points a week, so you can't anticipate too much of a big move here. But if you get some really bad news, this thing can sell off quite quickly. But we'll see. Right now, it's looking very, very strong right now, so we'll have to watch and see how this plays out this week. But yeah, that's where we're at for that one. And then some of these other ones, I've been looking at a lot of stuff. So even though I'm only talking about some, I only mention the ones that I think are good buys as of right now. Spot is one I'm really kind of looking at. Sad I missed this one because this one I remember seeing this well around that 200 mark, and the fact it's climbed all the way back to 500. And this is almost like buying Meta. Anytime this thing dips, you just buy it. So it's got some real strong support here, but yeah, this thing is way too high right now. So I just wanted to bring that up as a potential one on the buy list. This is another potentially good AI stock moving forward as well. I do want this thing to pull back some. Right now, it's kind of hitting that ceiling. I don't know if it's going to fill this gap, but we'll watch and we'll see. I think this thing probably will sell off. I have to watch and see if it can break the $12 mark. Again, for me, it's too high. It would have to pull back at least to just under $10 for me to start considering buying this thing again. But again, you can do what you want. It could be the next Palantir, and it may just keep running. I mean, who knows? Right now, it's all about software. I think at this point, we have a lot of infrastructure was a play, and I think infrastructure still will be a play. That's why I like AMD, because it's the only one that's kind of lagging there. But moving forward, it's going to be more so software at this point. So if you get a great use case, I think that can really drive the next piece of software that comes out that's innovated by AI will be massive. So it's just kind of keeping your eyes out for something like that. So, but we'll wait and we'll see. We have the big infrastructure bill. I think that will do great moving forward. But again, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. So, but that is pretty much everything I have as of right now. Again, waiting for a lot of stuff to cool off. Win is still another good one here. Another potential breakout. Again, this is going to be a slow cooker compared to some of these other ones. Tech will move a lot quicker than some of these other stocks. Just do keep that in mind. But right now, you're just kind of getting some shuffle here. But as you can see on these larger time frames, you are getting ready for a bigger breakout. So if you're willing to wait for this thing to continue to chop out here and then finally break out, so it's just playing this range roughly between the 120 and kind of hitting this bottom here at this 75. So you want to continue to just keep buying around this area and then potentially break out there. Strong possibilities. So, but we'll wait and we'll see. So with all that being said, if you made it this far, go ahead and drop your ticker down below, what you're watching for the week. Let me know your thoughts and ideas, and then drop a like, and I will see you guys on the next one.